Hey everyone, welcome to Blow Up. This is where Reddit's wildest stories explode onto your screen. Today we've got 5 insane tales, midnight confrontations, adult content clashes, ex-sabotage, parking lot Karens, and a sister's neglect. These are pure chaos, so grab your popcorn and let's dive in. My best friend was recently kicked out of where she was living and asked if she could stay with me in this emergency situation as she had nowhere else to go right now. Instantly said yes. We moved all her furniture and bigger things into a storage unit and she brought a few suitcases to my place. I'll be honest, at the time, I really wasn't thinking about her work situation. I knew her job was that's what she did for a living, that's how she made her money, and I've never judged her for it. However, the following day after the evening she moved in, I took my daughter to school and came home to do my own work. I work from home. She wandered into my kitchen at like 12 p.m. and told me she had some videos she needed to make. I instantly knew what she meant by that and I said, "Well, I mean, are you going to be quiet during these videos?" She laughed and said, "No, but you're my best friend so I don't mind if you hear me," to which I responded with, "I mind if I hear you. I'm not gonna lie, I don't feel comfortable you making those videos in my house. You can take your pics and stuff though, granted you don't do it while my daughter is home." She got a little snippy and upset with me and told me that making custom request videos was how she made the majority of her money and she had a bunch of requests that she needed to do. I told her again that I don't feel comfortable with that specifically. She told me to wear headphones. I said, "I do wear headphones because I have pretty much constant work calls through my day and I can't have you moaning and screaming in the background." I ended up saying, "If you can be quiet, then you can while I'm here working, and again as long as you're not doing it when my daughter is home." She told me she won't be able to be quiet because that's not what her clients, want. So I told her, "I'm sorry girl. No, I can't have that." She's now a little pissed off at me because I'm basically stopping her from making decent coin while she'll be staying with me until she finds a new place and that she has nowhere else to go to do it. Feel bad, but I think my feelings and reasons are justified. Edit just. To answer the majority who have mentioned hotel room, I answered a few. She claims a hotel would kick her out and that she really didn't think I would care about her doing it here as long as she didn't do it when my child is here. I genuinely thought because she does make decent money from it and had money in the bank, she just wouldn't do it in the short-term time that she'll be here at my place. She is actively looking for a new place to rent. She's not going to be here long-term. It was just an emergency situation and she knew I had a spare room in my house she could stay in, so I said yes because she's a very good close friend of mine. I'd like to point out that outside of her content, she dresses modestly and doesn't act like a whore. So I don't mind her being around my child. She's known my daughter since I had my daughter 7 years ago. My daughter is not exposed to anything inappropriate around her. Just wanted to mention that. Another point to mention, this isn't a case of her bringing people here to fuck them. She's just making videos for them, but those videos include a variety of things where she will obviously not be quiet. And I just don't want to have to hear it tbh, especially not while I'm on work calls. Also, the reason she was kicked out of her last place was actually nothing to do with her sex work, but it's also not relevant to my post. So I won't be discussing it here. If men could stop sliding into my DMs asking for her link, that would be great. Ugh. I don't know her fucking link. I'm her friend, not a subscriber. Update: she finally listened and has booked a hotel room for the night, just so she can go and get these requests that she has built up done. She's let her subs and clients know that's not going to be taking requests until she's settled in a new place. She's also just told me that she thinks she found a new place to rent, and she's now starting the process of that. Problem solved. IF28 have been best friends with M28 for 10 plus years. We're both Scorpios, born a week apart, and have the kind of friendship that has people constantly questioning if we're more than friends. We're not, we're siblings at this point. My family treats him like one of their own and vice versa. We've always had one rule: no touching, no hugs unless one of us is in real pain. That's how serious we've been about boundaries. When either of us gets into a relationship, we immediately introduce the partner and set the tone. My boyfriends always got along with him. His girlfriends? Not so much. Only 2 ever did. Now enter her. When they started dating, she and I actually got along well. She'd call to chat, I'd visit her at work, and I was genuinely rooting for them, especially since she stood by him when he was broke. But after they broke up, she called me to vent before he could. I stayed out of their relationship business and kept my distance out of respect. Fast forward to October 2024. My best friend got a boost in his career and he got big money, and yes, it comes with money. Suddenly, the ex slithers back into his life, except now she's upgraded her attitude and thinks she's the queen of the council. He tells me they're back together. I'm happy for him and excited to reconnect with her. Me, hey girl, where have you been? Or why do you wanna? No, I've been around. Me, come on, don't be like that. Anyway, congrats on you two getting back together. Her, thank you ma'am. We've got shopping to do. Click. That was the last normal moment. Suddenly, my best friend stops talking to me. No replies. Not even when I sent him an SOS text, something I've never done lightly. When I called him out for not being there for me during a crisis, I told him I'd stop trying altogether. He didn't respond. Then, midnight rolls around. I get a knock on the door at 23:45. It's him, his girlfriend, and his mother. I'm already on edge because earlier that day I'd been digitally assaulted. A stranger video called me and started pleasuring himself. Brought back deep trauma from when I was physically assaulted at age 6. I was not okay. The girlfriend storms in like the big bad wolf, breathing fire. She demands a meeting between my mom and his mom to interrogate our friendship. What? Because we text, I love you BTCH, and I apparently talk about guys too. Openly on the phone. She even deleted my SOS text because she thought it was just boy drama. Both moms shut her down hard. They told her no man will ever want to marry someone who wakes up elders in the middle of the night to feed her insecurities. That's when I snapped. I told her exactly why I had reached out that night and she went dead silent. They left without a word. During this whole hurdle, my best friend tells me they got engaged a month and she asked him not to tell me because seeing me would sicken her. He is rethinking the whole relationship because of how the fiancé/girlfriend reacted to our friendship. Now she wants to apologize because the relationship is threatened, meaning no money to spend on her kid will stop altogether. This weekend I posted some of my artwork for sale on Nextdoor, trying to get commissions to help pay for medical expenses. Everything was going well. I was getting lots of responses and interest. However, most people would disappear after the first exchange of messages, which is normal when selling online. Saturday night, I opened my email and saw a message from my ex, whom I'll call John. He saw my post and was making fun of me, saying I would have more success if I stood on the street and asked for money, and that I would never be successful without him. I ignored the email and deleted it, trying not to let it affect me. Messaged some of the interested people to follow up, and one person replied that they were no longer interested because they received a message from someone saying I wasn't a good artist and that I was crazy, so they shouldn't spend any money on me. I'm not sure how many others he might have contacted. Put two and two together and I know it was my ex. For context, I dated him for almost 2 years. He was the biggest narcissist and came from an affluent background. His dad owned several pawn shops, so he grew up very well off. Like most relationships, ours started out well, but then it changed. He became mentally and verbally abusive. Due to all the abuse, my health declined, and he would tell me that all my illnesses were just in my mind. He'd argue with me every time I went to the doctor. He was extremely controlling. I wasn't allowed to work or have friends. He was always jealous. The day I decided to leave, he shoved me really hard into the wall because I didn't want to give him my phone. He's 6 feet 3 inches and I'm 5 feet 3 inches, so you can imagine the power difference. Left him 6 months ago. Since then he's tried reaching out, begging me to get back together. I've been couch surfing at friends' places for a few months, but recently I moved in with my best friend and her parents. They have a little suite that they're letting me rent out. The problem is it's in the same area as my ex. I barely go out, so I doubt I'll run into him by chance, but now he knows I'm in the area. Back to this weekend. I'm so angry because I'm doing my best to seek medical help and survive, and he's here sabotaging all the efforts I'm making to force me to go back with him. I'm not proud of what I did because I know it was impulsive, but since he emailed me from his work email and I know who his boss is, I used to do my ex's work, I CC'd his boss, attaching his previous email and telling the boss if he knew that John shares sensitive company information with friends and that I did XYZ work John was supposed to do. Since then I've received a few calls from no caller ID from my ex. Left voicemails saying that I need to deny the email or he'll get fired blah. Blah. Edit, for those asking how did he know who to message. On Nextdoor people can like heart or whatever just like Facebook and people can comment just like Facebook. I had over 30 people comment that they were interested and wanted details in the comments. Some private messaged me but the minority reached out in the comments. Today was one of those days where you just think, wow, people really suck sometimes. I was parked, getting out of my car when the wind blew my door open gently. It barely touched the car next to mine. No visible dent, just a possible mark. Immediately acknowledged it and offered to exchange info. When I explained it was the wind, not to avoid responsibility, but just to clarify that it wasn't a careless act, she cut me off with, no, something like this happened before and it cost $2,000. My car is new. At that point it felt less like she was assessing real damage and more like she was trying to guilt trip and manipulate me. She even pointed out a completely unrelated mark further down and insisted that was from my door too, which made no sense based on where the door touched. And then it escalated fast. She started filming me and my toddler, who was crying in his car seat, scared and confused. She threatened to call the police. I was trying to stay calm, juggle my phone, pull up my insurance app and soothe my child, and she just kept the camera on us. Could feel my son's distress behind me, and that's when I lost it emotionally and called 911 myself. I didn't feel safe or respected, and I needed a neutral record of what was happening. After I gave her my info, I went back into the car to comfort my son, who by then was screaming and crying from the stress. Looked up and she was still filming us. I was literally just trying to calm my scared toddler, and she kept her phone pointed at us like we were some kind of show. That moment broke me. And it didn't stop there. When I showed her that I'd called 911, she told the police I had banged on her window, which was absolutely false. I simply held up my phone near the window to show her the call screen. She also accused me of locking my child in the car with no air circulation, which was so far from the truth. I was right there, window cracked, AC on. It was just another manipulative accusation meant to make me panic. She even lied about having the same insurance as me, USAA, when I first mentioned mine, but it turned out she was with Geico. Just more weird, unnecessary power moves. I know she probably assumed she could intimidate me. Because I'm an immigrant, English isn't my first language, and I look like someone who might not push back. But I didn't back down. I gave her my info, I made the call, and I stood my ground. My husband showed up by Uber when I called him, and for the first time in the whole interaction I felt not alone. I'm still feeling the stress hours later, but I'm proud of how I handled it. Didn't yell. I didn't film her back. I didn't escalate. I protected my son and kept my dignity. Because I want him to grow up knowing we do not back down from unfairness. We do not let people shame us into silence. And even when our hearts are pounding, we speak up. Thanks for letting me unload this here. Just needed to breathe it out somewhere real. Just to preface, my ex-BL did take the kids away from my sister. She's a narcissist and a master manipulator, and probably would have had no problem lying in court to get her way were it not for the potential evidence against her being so overwhelmingly bad. Her ex took the kids and didn't bring them back once he was positive she couldn't do a damn thing about it, and soon the court gave him majority custody. My sister only gets to see her kids about 2 days a month and some holidays. This particular incident goes back to winter 2023, before my sister was evicted from the family property. At that time her boyfriend had recently died in a car accident that quite possibly wasn't an accident. Technically, she'd just broken up with the guy because he'd cheated on her, and she repeatedly cried to me that she's not a cheater herself, which is an outright lie, as she had 3 affairs that we know of while still married to her ex-husband. And she still thinks I don't know. But by that time she was barely home 2 nights a week. My parents and I were the ones taking care of and paying to feed her kids because she wasn't coming home to feed them. She'd call her kids and ask them what they wanted for dinner and then wouldn't even show up. Our mother got mad at her and over text told her she'd abandoned her children. And my sister verbatim answered back, "No, I didn't." She never grew out of her teenage mentality. Even after having 3 kids and her husband joining the military to better support them, she was still acting like a teenager. My mother and I got in touch with my ex-BL to tell him everything because my sister had her kids so brainwashed that they didn't tell him much until he made them tell him everything. And any good clothes my nephews had, they would only keep at their father's house because they didn't want them torn up by the dogs or smelling like dog feces. I found out my nephews had no winter clothes at my sister's trailer because my youngest nephew woke me up on an early November the morning to ask for a ride to school because he'd missed the bus. And he was at my door in 39 degrees shivering in nothing but a t-shirt and shorts, and his shoes were falling apart. I asked him where his coat was and he said he didn't have one anymore. While I was driving him to school, I told him I was going to buy him a coat. And he literally said, "I'm in not just that sea cold." And I said, "Dude, I'm looking at you shivering right now." His shoes were so bad he could barely walk in them. He had to do this limp forward moonwalk shuffle because the bottoms of his shoes were coming apart. I superglued them back together that night. And the next day I went out and bought him a coat at a thrift store and he was wearing it to school right away. Then on the weekend I took him out clothes shopping and practically bought him a whole wardrobe. He didn't even have decent socks. He was having to use socks from his brothers and even his mother. I bought him socks, then I took him to a certain thrift store with great prices and bought him a pair of good black sneakers, 2 or 3 long-sleeved shirts, 2 sweatshirts, 3 pairs of pants because he had nothing but summer shorts and a pair of gloves and a knit cap. We rushed everything into the washing machine and he was wearing that stuff to school that Monday. The following weekend I took my middle nephew out and bought him new socks too, as well as about the same amount of thrift store clothes. He still wears the green hoodie I got for him back then. I bought him several pairs of pants, several shirts and sweatshirts, and a big thick coat which he really liked. And he was wearing that stuff ASAP too. The only thing he didn't need was shoes. I'm on a fixed income and this was not very long before Thanksgiving and Christmas. But I spent about $200 on clothes for those kids because they needed it. My eldest nephew was already living with his dad full-time, so he was fine. I also lent my youngest nephew a Timber Ridge camping cot just so he'd have a decent bed. His tiny room in the trailer had a couch bed previously, but moisture and dogs just destroyed it. I also bought the kid a sleeping bag because he wasn't sleeping well due to the cot getting cold on the underside. I ended up getting blankets and pillows for both of those kids. And after my sister was evicted, we cleaned out the trailer and found out she not only had a brand new sleeping bag in storage, she also had a hoard of unused blankets hidden under her bed. Oh, we were so mad. She let her kids be cold when she had that stuff the whole time. The summer of 2023, all 3 of my nephews were allowed to live around the yard in tents, which they found preferable to living in the trailer with their mom, her boyfriend, and the stinky dogs. I ran power cords from my house to all 3 of their tents and got all 3 of those kids fans and ice coolers and lent 2 of them camping cots to sleep on. And I also let the eldest stay in my camper trailer from time to time. When telling people this stuff, the first words out of their mouths are usually, "You're a good uncle." Meanwhile, my sister was busy drinking, partying, doing drugs, fighting with her POS boyfriend, and making trouble for all of us. We worked in secret with my ex-BIL to make sure those kids were safe, and he took them that December. And then he took my sister back to court. And before anyone points it out, I and my parents are very remorseful for not taking action sooner. But my sister had us all mentally beat down. She's a chronic manipulator that makes up stuff and then spreads lies. She had people all over the area believing the stuff she said about our parents. My parents couldn't go out to the local restaurant without getting side glances from people. But after we kicked out my sister, all of that stopped. She was poisoning everyone against our parents, and she wonders why we had enough of her. Edit: I forgot to add what my sister's reaction was to my buying her kids clothes. She actually complained that the clothes I got for her kids made them dress more like me, which is BS because they didn't look different from anything else those kids would wear. And then she just seemed to ignore it. Never even got any thanks from her about it. She just swept it under the rug and continued to act like she's a good mom. She's out partying while her kids are moonwalking in busted shoes. Someone get this sister a reality check. If your sibling pulled this, would you swoop in with thrift store heroics or let them freeze in their own mess? Share your family rescue stories below. That's it for episode 1 of Blow Up. These stories blew my mind, hope they did yours too. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more chaos. Got a wild tale of your own? Drop it in the comments. I'll catch you next time.